The rain came down in sheets, thick and relentless, drumming against the roof of Ethan Cole's sleek black car as he drove through the city. The world beyond his windshield blurred. Streaks of neon smeared across the glass. The hum of tires on wet asphalt a steady rhythm beneath the low growl of the engine. He took a turn down an unfamiliar street, one of the older parts of the city where the skyscrapers gave way to flickering street lamps and narrow alleys. That was when he heard it. A shout, then another, a sound that didn't belong in the rain. He slowed the car, eyes narrowing. Through the haze, he saw movement in an alley. 4, maybe 5 men, their silhouettes jerking and moving in a way that spoke of violence. Ethan's chest tightened. He killed the engine, threw open the door, and stepped into the downpour. The rain was cold, hitting like needles against his skin. He didn't feel it. "Hey!" His voice cut through the alley, deep and sharp. The men turned, faces half hidden beneath dripping hoods. For a moment they stared, sizing him up, a tall figure in a tailor coat, soaked but unflinching. "Walk away," one of them sneered. "Not your problem." Ethan's gaze dropped a man on the ground, curled in on himself, blood mixing with rainwater. Something inside him snapped. It is now. He moved before they could react, grabbing a loose pipe from beside a dumpster and swinging it with precise, practiced strength. It connected with a crack. One man stumbled, another cursed and lunged. A scuffle followed, short, vicious, chaotic. When it ended, the attackers fled, swallowed by the storm. Ethan dropped the pipe, chest heaving. He knelt beside the injured man. "Hey," he said, voice gentler now. "You're safe." The young man blinked up at him, dazed. His eyes were striking, amber with flecks of green, wide with fear. "Why?" His voice trembled. "Why did you stop?" Ethan pressed his coat around him. Because no one else did. He lifted the man carefully, feeling how light he was. "I'm taking you somewhere safe." By the time they reached Ethan's penthouse, the storm had dulled to a steady drizzle. The elevator opened to silence, glass walls revealing the glittering city far below. Ethan laid the man gently on the couch. "Stay awake," he said, shaking his shoulder lightly. The man's head lolled. "Name's Liam." "Ethan," he replied, dialing his private doctor. "You're going to be fine, Liam." When the doctor left an hour later, Liam was cleaned up and sleeping under a thick blanket. The bruises on his ribs were dark and ugly, the cut on his lip still raw. Ethan stood nearby, watching the rise and fall of his chest. Something about the boy's quiet, exhausted presence reached a place he didn't know still existed. Something human beneath the layers of control and wealth. He poured himself a drink and sat on the armchair opposite, unable to look away. Liam woke to sunlight and the faint scent of coffee. His head ached, but the sheets were warm, the air still. For a moment, he forgot where he was. Then he saw Ethan, immaculate even in casual clothes, standing by the window with a tablet in one hand. "You're awake," Ethan said without looking up. Liam blinked. "Where's this?" "My home." Ethan finally turned, his voice calm but firm. "You were hurt. I wasn't about to leave you in the street." "I can't pay you," Liam murmured. "I didn't ask you to." Their eyes met, brief, sharp, magnetic. Liam looked away first. "Thank you," he said quietly. "You can stay until you recover," Ethan replied. "After that, we'll figure something out." Liam hesitated, searching his face. "Why are you doing this?" Ethan didn't have an answer that made sense. Not to Liam, not to himself. So he simply said, "Because I wanted to." Liam's recovery stretched into days. Ethan found reasons to stay home, to work from the study or linger in the kitchen where Liam sat sketching at the counter. They talked, at first about safe things, music, the city, favorite foods. But soon their conversations deepened, slipping into late-night hours filled with laughter and quiet pauses. There were moments when words failed, when a glance said more. When Ethan brushed past Liam in the hallway, the air seemed to hold its breath. When Liam smiled, a rare, genuine smile, Ethan felt his pulse shift. One evening, Liam caught Ethan's reflection in the glass as the city lights flickered below. "You look different when you're not pretending to be in charge," he said softly. Ethan smirked. You seem to think you know a lot about me already. Maybe I'm trying to. For a heartbeat, neither moved. The world outside went silent. The only sound of rain beginning again, softer this time, more forgiving. A week later, Ethan left early for a meeting across town. Before leaving, he paused at the guest room door. Liam was still asleep, one arm thrown over his eyes, hair tousled. See you tonight, Ethan whispered, more to himself than anything. When he returned that evening, the penthouse felt wrong. Too quiet, too still. Liam? No answer. He checked every room. The sketchbook that usually lay open on the counter was gone. So were the clothes he'd bought for him. Ethan sat down heavily, disbelief tightening his chest. Had he left? Without a word? He pulled out his phone and called. Once, twice, 10 times. Each ring felt longer than the last. On the 30th call, someone finally picked up. Liam? Ethan exhaled. A low chuckle came through the speaker. Liam doesn't belong to you. Ethan froze. Who is this? He's mine. Always has been. The voice was smooth, cruel, the kind that smiled while it threatened. You think you can take what's mine, Mr. Cole? The line went dead. Ethan stood there, the phone still in his hand, his reflection in the window pale and sharp against the night. Outside, thunder rumbled again, and the city lights seemed to flicker in answer. He took a steady breath. No one owns him, he said quietly. No one. And just like that, the hunt began. The silence in the penthouse felt alive. Every clock tick echoed like a taunt. Every reflection in the glass whispered his failure. Ethan sat on the couch where Liam had fallen asleep so many nights ago, his phone clutched in one hand. The last words from that unknown man kept replaying in his head. He's mine. Always has been. His chest tightened. He'd built an empire by solving problems, by keeping control. But this wasn't negotiation. This was Liam. He forced himself to move. Within minutes, he was in his office, lights flickering on automatically as he powered up his computer. His security team was the best in the city. Men who owed him favors, who didn't ask too many questions. Traced the last call on my phone. He ordered over the line. I don't care how long it takes. Hours passed in fragments of frustration and fear. He replayed their last moments together. Liam laughing softly over burnt toast, the hesitant warmth in his voice when he said see you later. He hadn't said goodbye. When the call came back, it wasn't good news. The signal bounced off multiple towers. Whoever took him knew how to cover their tracks. Ethan's jaw tightened. Then we start with what we know. Liam had nowhere to go. Someone came for him. Find out who. He hung up and stood by the window, watching the storm clouds crawling over the city skyline. He pressed his palm to the glass, as if distance could be bridged by will alone. I'll find you, he thought, no matter what it takes. The world came back in fragments. The sharp smell of gasoline, the hum of tires on the road, a voice in the front seat humming an old tune that made his skin crawl. When Liam opened his eyes, he was in a dim room with a single bulb flickering overhead. His wrists ached. They'd been tied, though loosely, almost mockingly. A man leaned against the wall across from him. Dressed well, too well, a cruel sort of elegance. Awake, finally, the man said with a smirk. You've been running for quite some time, haven't you, Liam? Why are you doing this? Liam rasped. The man crouched, gripping his chin roughly. Because you belong to me. You remember that, don't you? Liam flinched away, heart pounding. He remembered the shouting, the debts his stepfather had accumulated, how he'd been dragged into it all when he was younger. Property. That was what the man had always called him. A bargaining chip, not a person. He thought of Ethan then, the way Ethan had looked at him as if he were someone, not something. That memory alone gave him strength. I don't belong to anyone, he said quietly. The man laughed, low and cold. We'll see about that. He left the room, the door locking behind him with a metallic click. Liam sat back against the wall, eyes burning, whispering to the empty air. Ethan, please don't come for me. But I know you will. 2 days later, Ethan stood in an underground parking lot, the glow of his car headlights illuminating a nervous man in a leather jacket, one of his informants. Talk, Ethan ordered. The man shifted uneasily. "You're looking for Liam Walker, right? He's got a record. Minor stuff, mostly tied to a man named Alaric Graves. Not a good guy. Has a reputation for collecting people." Ethan's hands curled into fists. "Collecting?" The man hesitated. "Let's just say Graves sees people as leverage." Something cold and sharp settled in Ethan's gut. "Where is he?" I don't know for sure, but he'd been seen out by the old estate near Hollow Ridge." Ethan's car roared to life before the man could finish the sentence. He didn't call the police. He didn't tell a security detail. This wasn't business. This was personal. The hours blurred. Liam didn't know if it was day or night anymore, only that the door sometimes opened, to bring food, to remind him that escape was hopeless. He waited, counting footsteps, memorizing every creak of the floorboards. He told himself that Ethan would be furious, that he'd pace and plan and break rules to find him. For the first time in years, the thought of someone fighting for him felt possible. He closed his eyes, holding on to the sound of Ethan's voice in his memory. Calm, grounding, like quiet thunder. "Stay alive," he whispered to himself. "He'll come." The estate came into view through the trees, sprawling, abandoned-looking, with only one light burning behind shuttered windows. Ethan stepped out of the car into the cold night air. His pulse was steady. The rain had started again, soft and unrelenting. He approached the side door, picking the lock with surprising ease. Years of corporate espionage had their uses. Inside, the air was stale, heavy with old dust and something darker. He moved quietly, methodically, checking room after room until he heard it. A faint sound, a cough, followed by a familiar voice. "Ethan?" "Liam." For the first time in days, Ethan's heart skipped a beat. He turned toward the sound, every nerve on fire. He'd found him. But before he could reach the door, another voice cut through the hall, cold and mocking. "I was wondering when the great Ethan Cole would come slumming down here." Alaric Graves stepped into view, smiling as if this were a business meeting. Ethan's expression hardened. "Let him go." "Why would I do that?" Alaric said lightly. "He's mine, remember?" Ethan took a step forward, and though his voice was calm, there was a promise in it. Quiet, lethal. "He stopped being yours the night I found him." The rain outside intensified. Thunder rumbling like the city itself was holding its breath. And in that moment, Ethan knew, no matter what happened next, he wouldn't leave without Liam. The air inside the estate felt wrong. Too still, too heavy, as though the building itself remembered every scream it had swallowed. Ethan's gaze locked on Alaric Graves. The man looked exactly as his reputation promised. Sharp suit, colder eyes. There was power in his stance, the kind that came from cruelty, not strength. The faint smirk curving his lips only made Ethan's hands tighten. "I warned Liam about getting too close to powerful men," Alaric said, voice smooth as oil. "He never learns." Ethan's tone was quiet, dangerous. "He's not yours to warn." "Everything that touches my name is mine," Alaric replied. And Liam, poor desperate Liam, was always easy to own. Something inside Ethan broke. The calm CEO facade cracked, leaving behind something far older and fiercer. He moved. The distance between them vanished in a heartbeat. Alaric barely had time to react before Ethan's hand slammed into his chest, pinning him to the wall. The impact echoed through the empty hall. "Where is he?" Ethan hissed. Alaric smiled, blood tracing his lip. "Downstairs. But you won't make it far." Behind them, footsteps. Heavy, coordinated. Two men in black stepped out of the shadows, security armed. Alaric straightened his jacket, amused. "I'm a collector, Ethan. You think I don't protect my investments." Ethan didn't answer. He grabbed a vase from the side table and hurled it into the light switch. The hallway plunged into darkness. Gunfire erupted. Ethan dove behind a column, the bullet sparking against stone. He waited, counted the pauses between reloads, then moved fast. 1, 2, 3 steps, and disarmed the first guard with brutal precision. The second lunge, and Ethan slammed him into the wall, knocking the weapon free. When the echoes faded, only Ethan's ragged breath filled the silence. Alaric was gone. Ethan turned toward the end of the corridor, a staircase leading down into the basement. The air grew colder with every step. He found Liam in a small concrete room, wrists still bound, eyes dazed but fierce. "Ethan," Liam breathed, disbelief and relief colliding in his voice. Ethan crossed the space in seconds, crouching to untie him. "You're safe now." Liam's voice shook. "You shouldn't have come." Ethan met his gaze. "You knew I would." For a moment, neither of them moved. The hum of the flickering bulb above seemed to fade, leaving only the sound of their breathing. The kind of silence that said everything words couldn't. Then a sound broke it, a door slamming upstairs. "They're coming," Liam said. Ethan helped him to his feet. "We're leaving. Now." They moved through the corridors like ghosts, every creak of the old house a threat. Rain hammered the windows, drowning out their footsteps. When they reached the main hall, Alaric was waiting, gun in hand, expression cold and unbothered. "Impressive," he said. "You made it farther than I thought." Ethan stepped forward, shielding Liam slightly. "It's over, Graves." "Oh, Ethan," Alaric sighed. "You think the world works in neat endings? You take him, you make yourself a target. You have no idea who you're dealing with." Ethan's eyes were steady. "Then you'll learn who you're dealing with." The two men stared at each other across the ruined hall. Predator against predator, power against will. Then the storm surged, wind shattering a window beside them. The distraction was enough. Ethan lunged forward, knocked the gun aside, and drove his shoulder into Alaric's chest. The weapon skittered across the floor. Liam grabbed it before it stopped spinning. For a heartbeat, the roles reversed. Liam, trembling, pointing the gun at his former captor. Alaric laughed softly. "Go ahead. You don't have it in you." Liam's hand shook. He wanted to. He didn't. Ethan reached for him gently, lowering the barrel with a steady touch. "You don't need to be him," he said quietly. "You're free." Alaric's sneer faltered as distant sirens cut through the night. Ethan's security detail, the ones he'd finally called minutes earlier, must have tracked his car. "Looks like this conversation's over," Ethan said. When the police burst in, Alaric's expression twisted into fury, but he said nothing. They took him away in silence, his empire unraveling with every step. Outside, the rain was still falling. Liam leaned against Ethan's car, the exhaustion finally breaking through. Ethan slipped his jacket around his shoulders. "You came," Liam whispered. "Of course I did," Ethan said. "You think I'd let anyone take you from me?" Liam smiled faintly, the first real smile in days. "You're insane." "Probably," Ethan admitted, a tired grin tugging at his mouth. "But it worked." The two stood in the rain for a long time, neither speaking, letting the storm wash away the weight of what had almost been lost. For the first time in a long time, Liam didn't feel like property. He felt seen, wanted, free. And for Ethan, the man who thought he had everything, that moment in the rain felt like the first thing that had ever really mattered. Morning came too quickly. The storm had broken hours ago, but the city was still drenched in gray light, the kind that seeped into the bones. From the penthouse balcony, Ethan Cole watched the traffic below, a sea of headlights and movement that felt a million miles away from the silence behind him. The door opened softly. "Mr. Cole," said Jordan, his head of security. "The police are requesting your full statement today. They've also issued a temporary detainment for Graves' assets. They'll want to question Liam." Ethan's shoulders tensed. "He's not ready." "I told them that. They said if he doesn't come voluntarily, they'll send someone." Ethan turned then, calm, controlled, but his eyes were sharp. "Let them try." Jordan hesitated before adding, "There's one more thing. The press caught wind of it. They're connecting Graves to your company. Old deals, offshore accounts. It's getting messy." Of course it was. In his world, nothing stayed private for long. "Lock it down," Ethan said. "Any leak, any source. I want to know where it's coming from." Jordan nodded, then left quietly. The moment the door closed, Ethan exhaled and pressed a hand against his temple. For years, control had been his currency, the thing that built his empire, kept his name untouchable. Now, every headline chipped away at that illusion. He turned as Liam appeared in the doorway, wearing one of his shirts. Too large, sleeves rolled up to his elbows. The bruises on his face were fading, but the haunted look hadn't left his eyes. "They're talking about you on the news," Liam said softly. "About us?" Ethan studied him. "It doesn't matter." "It does to me," Liam said. "You're risking everything." Ethan stepped closer. "You're not a risk." Liam met his gaze, something conflicted flickering behind it. "You don't get it, Ethan. I've been a liability my whole life. For my stepfather, for anyone who tried to help me. I don't want to be the reason your world falls apart." Ethan's voice lowered, steady. "My world wasn't worth much before you were in it." Liam looked away, jaw tightening, not out of anger, but out of the kind of fear that comes from being cared for after years of not being allowed to be. Before either of them could say more, Ethan's phone rang. "Cole," he answered sharply. "Mr. Cole." Came the voice of Detective Ramos, calm, professional, the same one who'd handled the Graves arrest. "We have a problem. Graves' lawyers are already at it. They're spinning this as an abduction case, saying you broke into his property and assaulted his man." Ethan's tone cooled. "I retrieved someone who was being held against his will." "I know that," Ramos said, "but without Liam's testimony, the case leans his way." Ethan's gaze flicked to Liam, standing near the window, watching the clouds. "Then you'll have a statement soon." He hung up and set the phone down. Liam turned, already reading his expression. "They need me, don't they?" "They're twisting it," Ethan said. "If you don't speak, Graves wins." Liam hesitated. "He'll find a way to come after you." "Let him try." There was silence, heavy, fragile. Finally, Liam nodded. "Then I'll do it." Later that afternoon, the penthouse filled with quiet tension as Detective Ramos arrived. Liam sat across from him at the glass table, fingers trembling slightly around a mug of untouched tea. Ethan stood nearby, silent support embodied. Ramos set his recorder down. "Just take your time," he said gently. "We're not here to pressure you." Liam nodded. "He took me, said I still owed him for debts that weren't mine. He said I was his property." Ramos' jaw flexed. "We'll make sure that word never gets spoken in a courtroom again." When the statement ended, Ramos thanked them and left, promising protection and follow-up. The door closed behind him with a final click, and silence filled the room again. Liam leaned forward, pressing his face into his hands. "It's never over, is it?" Ethan walked over and knelt beside him. "It will be. I'll make sure of it. You can't control everything. I can control what happens to you." For the first time, Liam didn't argue. He just nodded, a small, wordless surrender. 2 days later, the storm shifted again. Ethan's company was under audit. Stockholders were panicking. Someone had leaked footage, grainy security clips from the night at the estate. Headlines blared across every screen. CEO tied to criminal syndicate. Mysterious young man linked to corporate scandal. Inside his glass office, Ethan stared at the chaos below. His assistant entered, flustered. "Sir, the board wants an emergency meeting." Ethan's voice was even. "Tell them they'll get one." When she left, he picked up his phone and called Jordan again. "I want every trace of Graves' dealings exposed. If he's trying to bury me, I'll take his entire empire with him." Jordan hesitated. "That could drag you into it deeper. Then I'll drag him down faster." He hung up, the tension in his shoulders unyielding. Behind him, the elevator chimed. Liam stepped out, looking uneasy in the corporate chaos. Ethan turned, surprise flashing across his face. "What are you doing here?" "I couldn't sit around while they tore you apart," Liam said quietly. "You saved me. Let me help you." Ethan shook his head. "You've been through enough." "So have you," Liam countered. "And I'm not going to let you fight this alone." The words hit harder than they should have. For a long moment, Ethan just looked at him, this fragile, stubborn presence who had somehow become the center of his storm. Outside, reporters gathered. Inside, the walls of Ethan's empire trembled. But when he looked at Liam, the noise faded, if only for a moment. That night, the city was alight with chaos. Flashing headlines, sirens in the distance, the pulse of consequence. In the quiet of the penthouse, Ethan finally let the facade crack. Papers covered the desk, documents linking Graves' shell companies to several corporate entities. He rubbed his eyes, exhaustion pressing at his temples. Then a hand touched his shoulder. Liam stood behind him, offering a quiet steadiness that words couldn't match. "You're not alone in this," he said softly. Ethan looked up at him, something unspoken flickering between them. Gratitude, fear, something dangerously close to hope. "Then we fight," Ethan said finally. "Together," Liam answered. The city outside burned with headlines and accusation, but in that small pocket of light and silence, the war between them and the world had already begun.